The wonderful tune. Maurice Connor was the king, and that's no small word, of all the pipers in Munster. He could play jig and reel without end, and Ollistrum's march, and the eagle's whistle, and the hen's concert, and odd tunes of every sort and kind. But he knew one far more surprising than the rest, which had it in its power to set everything dead or alive dancing. In a way he learned it is beyond my knowledge, for he was mighty cautious about telling how he came by such a wonderful tune. At the very first note of that tune, the shoes began shaking upon the feet of all who heard it, old and young it mattered not, just as the shoes had to argue. Then the feet began going and going and going from under them, and at last, and away with them, dancing like mad, whisking here and there and everywhere like a straw in a storm. There was no halting while the music lasted. Not a fair, nor a wedding, nor a feast in the 7 parishes round was counted worth speaking of without blind Maurice and his pipes. His mother, poor woman, used to lead him about from one place to another, just like a dog. Down through Ivor, Maurice Connor and his mother were taking their rounds. Beyond all places, Ivor is a place of stormy coasts and steep mountains, as proper a spot as it may be in any Ireland to get yourself drowned, or your neck broken on the land, should you prefer that. But, notwithstanding the Ballinskill Bay, there was a neat bit of ground, well fitted for diversion, and down from it, towards the water, is a clean, smooth piece of strand, the dead image of the calm seas and the moonlight night, with just a curl of the waves upon it. Here it was that Morris's music had brought from all parts a great gathering of young men and young women, for 'twas not every day that the strand at Trafalgar was stirring up by the voice of a bagpipe. The dance began, as pretty a dance as it ever was danced. Brave music, everyone said, and well done, when Morris stopped. More to your elbow, Maurice, and fair winds to the bellows, cried Paddy Dorman, a humpbacked dancer master who was there to keep order. "'Tis a pity," he said, "that we'd let the piper run dry after such music. 'Twould be a disgrace at Ivor that didn't come on it since that week of 3 Sundays. So, as well became him, for he was always a decent man, says he. Do you drink, piper? I will, sir, said Maurice, answering the question on the safe side, for you never know yet a piper schoolmaster who refused to drink. What will you drink, Maurice? Said the Paddy. I'm no ways particular, said Maurice. I'll drink anything barring raw water, if it's all the same to you. Mr. Dorman, maybe you would lend me the loan of a glass of whisky. I've no glass, Maurice, said Paddy. I've only the bottle. Let that be no hindrance, answered Maurice. My mouth just holds a glass in the drop, often as I've tried it, sure. So Paddy Dorman trusted him with the bottle, poor fool he was, and to his cost he found that though Morrow's mouth might not hold as much of a glass at one time, yet, owing to the hole in his throat, it took many a filling. That was no bad whisky bottle, either, said Maurice, handing back the empty bottle. By the holy frost, then, says Paddy, but 'tis cold comfort there's in the bottle now, and 'tis your word we must take for the strength of the whisky, for you've left us none to sample to judge by. And, to be sure, Maurice had not. Now I need not tell any gentleman or lady that if he or she was to drink an honest bottle of whisky at one pull, it is not at all the same as drinking a bottle of water, and in the course of my whole life I never knew more than 5 men who could do so without being the worse. Of these, Maurice Connor was not one, though he had a stiff word that says, when liquor's in, sense is out, and puff, at a breath he was blasting out his wonderful tune. 'Twas really then beyond all belief in telling the dancing. Maurice himself could not hold quiet, staggering now on one leg, now on the other, and rolling like a ship in a sea across, trying to humour the tune. There was his mother, too, moving her old bones as light as the youngest girl of them. But her dancing, no, nor the dancing of all the rest, is not worthy of speaking about to the work that was going down on the strand. Every inch of it was covered with all manner of fish, jumping and plunging about to the music, and every moment more and more would tumble out of the water, charmed by the wonderful tune. Crabs of monstrous size spun around and around on one claw with the nimbleness of a dancing master, and twirled and tossed their claws about like the limbs that did not belong to them. It was a sight to behold. But perhaps you have heard of Father Florence Conry, a pleasant man, of one who would wish to drink with this hot summer's day, and he had rhymed out all the dancing fishes so neatly that it would be 1,000 pities to not to give you his verse. So here they are, in English. The big seals in motion, like waves in the ocean, her gouty feet prancing, came heading the gay fish. Crabs, lobsters, and crayfish, determined on dancing. The sweet sounds they followed, the gasping cad swallowed. 'Twas wonderfully, really, the turbot and the flounder. Mid-fish were the rounder, that just capered as gaily. John Dories came tripping, though baked by the skipping. The frisk it seemed given, bright mackerel went spinning, like small rainbows winging their flight up to heaven. The waiting in the haddock, the saltwater paddock, this dance to be put in, where skates with that flat fins, edged out of some old places, but souls keep their footing. Sprats and herrings and powers, oh, silvery showers, a number outnumbered, a great length so lengthy, there was such a plenty, the shore was encumbered. The scallop and the oyster, two shells did roister, like castanets flitting, while limpets proved clearly, the rocks very nearly were splitting. Never such a hullabaloo in this world before or since was as if heaven and earth were coming together, all after Maurice Connor's wonderful tune. In the height of all these doings, what should there be dancing among the outlandish set of fishes but a beautiful young woman, as beautiful as the dawn of day? She had a cocked hat upon her head. From under it her long green hair, just the colour of the sea, fell down behind, while at the hindrance to her dancing. Her teeth were like rows of pearls, her lips from all the world looked like red coral, and she had a shining pale green gown, as hollow as the wave, with little rows of purple and red seaweed settled upon it. For you never saw a lady yet under the water or on the water who had not a good notion of dressing herself out. She danced at last to Maurice, who was flinging his feet from under him as fast as hops, for nothing in this world could keep still while that tune of his was going on. And says she to him, chanting out in a voice as sweet as honey, "I'm a lady of honour who live in the sea. Come down, Maurice Connor, and be married to me. Silver plates and gold dishes you shall have, and shall be king of the fishes when we are married to me." Drink was strong in Maurice's head, and now he chanted in return for her great civility. It is not every lady, maybe, that would be after making such an offer to a blind piper. Therefore it was only right in him to give her as good as she gave herself. So says Maurice. "I've obliged you, madam, for gold dish or plate. If a king and I had 'em, I would dine in great state. With your own father's daughter, I'd be sure to agree. But to drink the salt water wouldn't do so with me." The lady looked at him, quite amazed, and swinging her head from side to side like a great scholar. "Well," says she, "Maurice, if you're not a poet, where is the poetry to be found?" It was this way they kept on at it, framing high compliments, one answering the other, and their feet going with the music as fast as their tongues. All the fish kept dancing too. Maurice heard the clatter and was afraid to stop playing, lest it might be displeasing to the fish, and not knowing what so many of them may take up into their heads to do to him if they got vexed. Well, the lady in the green hair kept coaxing Maurice with soft speeches, till at last she over-persuaded him to promise to marry her, and be the king over fishes, great and small. Maurice was well fitted to be their king, if they wanted one that would make them dance, and surely he would drink, barring salt water, with any fish of them all. When Maurice's mother saw him with that unnatural thing in the form of a green-haired lady as his guide, and he and she drinking down together and loving to the water's edge, through the thick of fishes, she called out after him to stop and come back. "Oh, then," she says, as if with not a widow enough before her, There he is going away from me to be married to that scaly woman. And who knows but his grandmother I may take a hard cod. Help me and pity me, but 'tis a mighty unnatural thing, and maybe it's just boiling and eating my own grandchildren. I'll be with a bit of salt butter and not knowing it. Oh, Maurice, Maurice, if there's any love of nature left in you, come back to your own old mother, who reared you like a decent Christian. Then the poor woman began to cry and sob so finely that it would do anyone good to hear her. Maurice was not long getting to the rim of the water. There he kept playing and dancing, as if nothing was the matter, and the great thundering wave coming in towards him, ready to swallow him up alive. But as he could not see, he did not fear it. His mother, who saw it plainly through big tears, were rolling down her cheeks, and though she saw it, and her heart was aching as much as ever a heart ached for a son, she kept dancing, dancing all the time for the bear of her life. Certain it was she could not help it, for Maurice never stopped playing that wonderful tune of his. He only turned his ear to the sound of his mother's voice, fearing it might put him out of his steps, and all the answer he made back was, "What's with you, mother? Sure, I'm going to be king over the fishes down in the sea, and for a token of luck and a sign that I'm alive and well, I'll send you in every 12 months on this day, beast and burned worm from Tranfresca." Maurice had not the power to say a word more, for the strange lady with the green hair, seeing the wave just upon them, covered him with herself in a thing like a cloak with a big hood on it, and the wave came curling over twice as high as their heads, burst upon the strand, with a rush and a roar that might be heard as far as Cape Clear. That day, 12 months, the piece of burned wood came ashore at Trafasco. It was a queer thing for Maurice to think of sending all the way from the bottom of the sea. A gown or a pair of shoes would have been something like a present for his poor mother. But he had said it and kept his word. A bit of burned wood regularly came ashore on the appointed day, as for good. Aye, it's better 100 years. The day is now forgotten, and maybe that is the reason why people now say Maurice Connor had stopped sending his love token to his mother. Poor woman, she did not live to get as much as one of them, for what thoughts of the loss of Maurice and the fear of eating her own grandchildren. She died in 3 weeks after the dance. Some say it was fatigue that killed her, but whichever it was, Mrs. Connor was decently buried with her own people. Seafaring people have often heard, off the coast of Kerry, on a still night, the sounding music coming up from the water, and some who have good ears could plainly distinguish Maurice Connor's voice singing these words to his pipes. "Beautiful shore, the spreading stand, the crystal water and diamond sand, never would I have parted from thee, but for the sake of my fair laddie."